Hi, friend. It's Carmen here to talk about homeschool. And today I have our first video interview with my friend, Christine Lund. Hi, Christine.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Christine is in Minnesota right now. And so I just want
Yeah.
to kind of open up by saying, hey, tell us a little bit about your family and home situation.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, first of all, I've known Carmen for quite a few years, and so this is so fun that we get to chat because I don't get to see her very often. Um, we live in Minnesota. We are in the snowy tundra for a lot of the year. We're starting to see a little bit of spring, which is exciting.
Yay.
But I'm married to Nate. And we have three kids. We have a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Um, and my husband is a dentist, and so he's the guy you don't want to see because he does the root canals.
But he does a really good job.
He's so well loved, by his patients. But yeah, that's us in a nutshell. We were born and raised in Minnesota, but we had a little short stint in the South because my husband was in the military. But now we're back home, and we love most of Minnesota,
Right.
most of the time.
Yeah,
So
and you have a beautiful home there. We've had the privilege to come and visit and see you guys. So
thank you.
you have life and community around you, but you kind of live on your own land. And I say homestead. I don't know if that's the right word, but you guys,
Yeah,
you have your house and
yeah,
you have your farm and your chickens, and I just love it. It's like you're
yes,
kind of
we do.
self-sufficient. I love it.
We are. Yeah, I think we're getting into homesteading a little bit. We've got chickens. We're going to work on the garden this year, things like that. So my husband's kind of like a farmer at heart. He's, a dentist, but I think his heart would be more like a farmer. It's really fun that we get to do a lot of that out here, just for fun, And we love being on land, and we love letting the kids roam and explore the woods and stuff. And so, yeah, it's really fun. It's a really fun place. But we're about 10, 15 minutes from town, and
Yeah.
we have quite a good community even out where we are. And so, yeah, and we actually just built this house less than a year ago. So we're actually still kind of learning
That's good.
how to live out in the country.
One of my favorite things when we came to visit you was your homemade pancakes and homemade bread, and that you grind your own wheat and you make it all fresh there. Like I was
Yes.
so spoiled. I came home and I was like, oh, I just want to have all that yummy food, but I don't want to do the work for it. And I really need to do the work for it. It's so
Yeah,
good.
it's like my secret favorite thing is making bread. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's fun,
Yeah.
and grinding the grain, and I don't know. I guess the farm life was in me. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well,
So
and shout
yeah,
out to Addison. You know who you are if you're watching for that.
yeah,
Shout out to Miss
she's
Brenda. You know who you are.
yes, she's the one. And I actually thanked her like a few months ago. I said, "You introduced me to this long ago, and I didn't take it up until now." So
Yeah.
you never know what truth you'll be speaking into someone, even if it's way before the time.
Yeah,
So
you never know. Before we move on, I also have to point out, I think it's so awesome that you married a dentist and you have this amazing smile, but never had braces. I
I
cannot
did
believe
it.
it. So I think I joked with you once
Why
before.
marry me?
Yeah, Nate was
Yeah.
like, so have you ever had braces? You're like, no. He's like, marry me. Like, our kids will have
That is
perfect teeth.
never funny stuff. Yeah, he married me for my teeth genes. No
Yeah.
cavity, no
Wow.
yeah, it is. It's very funny. Yes, but thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to have straight teeth. So
That's good. Okay, so we'll jump into the questions because everybody's wanting to know
yeah,
like how to do this, what to do. So tell us, why do you homeschool?
yeah. This is such an interesting question. It seems like such an easy question to answer, but I know, like you and probably most people, the initial reason we homeschooled was kind of one thing, and then as we got into it, it evolved, and so even the reasons that really keep us homeschooling now are very different than what we started. But so I was a nurse practitioner for quite a few years. And worked part-time when my kids were young. And my daughter, when she was about 4, we saw pretty early that she was probably going to have ADHD. It's really hard to tell when they're really, really young. But I think just because I was ingrained in that at work, I cared for a lot of kids with ADHD, saw a lot of their school struggles, and just, got to know them and know their hearts and know their personalities. I think I just was a little more in tune to see it a little younger. And so, I saw a lot of kids show up in my office around fourth grade, especially kids who have more the inattentive type ADHD, meaning they're not necessarily that hyperactive. So they're generally pretty well behaved and they're, pretty quiet in class, but no one really knows that they're not paying attention at all. And that really was what described my daughter. And what can happen is they sort of scoot along, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, because there's not a lot of organizational skills needed. The teacher, helps them with a lot, and they can scoot along for a while. But in that time, a lot of times their self-esteem really starts to plummet because they notice, we know kids are so smart and they pick up on things and they notice that, hey, everybody else is getting it except for me.
Right.
And so their self-esteem kind of plummets. A lot of times they develop a lot of anxiety around school, some depression. And so I just saw this happen over and over and over. And so it just got my husband and I thinking a little bit about, how do we help her not have to really go through all that self-worth questioning at such a young age, before she really can process that as well. And also, Carmen knows this about us, that I knew Carmen homeschooled when we lived in Savannah, and I think my interest was piqued, but my husband and I still were kind of like, no, no. So yeah. We were 100% those people that were like, that there's no way. I mean, I don't know why people do that. What in the world are they thinking? And I can't do that, And so I think also I was kind of the mom who was looking forward to, hey, okay, they'll go off to school. And, I just felt like the little years were so tough. I felt really overwhelmed by the little years. And so just the thought of trying to educate them too just felt really overwhelming. And so so I think we wrestled with it, even though we thought maybe homeschooling would help. But man, we kind of dug our heels in for a while, even until it was probably spring of before she would go to kindergarten. And I just sort of started panicking, inside. I just felt so unsettled. And our faith is really important to us. And so we were, sorry, I have one in the background.
That's okay.
So I prayed a lot and I just said, God, I feel completely unqualified for this, but if this is the direction that you want us, help me to be at peace with that. And just over time, my heart really shifted. Now, when I finally told my husband, he was like, nope, not happening. And then, I mean, it truly was miraculous that eventually he came around, and he thought, I can see this. I can see that, if we can help her learn in a different way, we know she's intelligent. It's just a matter of how do we help her to pay attention. And so we both got on the same page, but even at that point, we thought, what, we'll try it for a year. Like we can't mess her up that badly in kindergarten, can we? Right. And so we really truly thought, we'll do a year, we'll put her back in school, and we'll say we tried. And that was truly our thought process. Now, we were completely blown away in that year that we started, just by all of the other benefits. First of all, I realized it was really nice to have her home. My kids played together, and I had a newborn at that time when we started, which I thought was so crazy to start homeschooling with a newborn. But
it is. It's difficult.
It's not. It works, And I found that it was wonderful because my daughter could play with my 2-year-old, and if I had sent her off to school, that wouldn't happen so much. And so just from even a practical standpoint, I was so surprised because I thought it would be so much harder, but I found out it was actually easier to have her home. And also, we just saw her just blossom. I mean, she picked up on the material very easily, as long as we were jumping or going on a walk or, just doing things. And so we just really got to know her and we got to know how she learned. And we started to really kind of untrain our brain to say, oh, you can learn in so many different ways. And that was just really was so different, I think, than what we traditionally thought. Because, we're both pretty highly educated. So we've been in the school system for a really long time, and so I think we've been really, we were comfortable in that and didn't really realize that there was another way. And
Right.
So we were just really surprised when we learned all of these different things. And so, so I think we also love that we have so much free time, and especially when Dad's home. I think that's the thing that keeps me homeschooling above the house. I mean, I think our faith now is our biggest thing because we realize, we can the education flows from God. God is in charge of all. So of course our education should flow from him. But I think we had kind of separated that in our mind previously. And so I think that's a big thing. But then just even practical things, we get more time with Dad. Our evenings are free. There's no homework. We're pretty scheduled during the day. We get our activities done during the day and those sorts of things. So I think a lot of the practical things just really make sense for our family. But then I honestly now I would just miss my kids so much.
Yeah.
I just really would. And I never thought I would say that. Like like I said, I was kind of in that, okay, when they go to school, then I'll have a minute, and now I just love knowing them inside and out and knowing that I'm the one who gets to teach them. And it's surprising actually to me, but I just love that part of it. So, but something that I really wanted to touch on today, because I think it's just something that is not really considered as much in as far as how homeschooling can really affect a family and children is I like to view my kids, not just academically. I think we think of homeschooling and we think of the academics and we think, okay, I don't know what to teach them. I don't know, I can't challenge them enough. I can't, whatever. We're just really focusing on the academics. And I think that can talk people out of it, or, it might convince some people to do it. But that's just our focus. But what I have found in my home to continue to propel me to homeschool, but also just what I see as such an asset to homeschooling is looking at the other intelligences. So I am certainly not an expert on this. And a lot of people will kind of, there's experts that kind of group, say we all have, 7 or 9 or 3, or there's all different groupings. But I think the ones I wanted to address today were academic intelligence, emotional intelligence, and social intelligence. And those are just big categories for every human being. Yeah. Some of us are more academically gifted. Some of us are more emotionally gifted. Some of us are more socially gifted. And in our society, we value academics, higher, especially in our schooling system. And so I think that, number one, when we don't look at those kids who are more emotionally gifted or socially gifted, they have so much to offer, and they sometimes get a lower self-esteem, I think, because that's not valued as much. And so certainly in our house, we can really celebrate all these different gifts that our kids have. But I just want to tease those out a little bit. So someone who might be more emotionally intelligent might be someone who's really empathetic. These are people who are great friends. They can really read emotions. They can process their own emotions really well. This might be someone who you say, man, they just handle stress so well, because they just have learned to process emotions really well. Social intelligence might be someone who can really read a room really quickly and can have a conversation with anyone. These might be people who are really, really good in business or sales or negotiating, and also just influencers. These are people who people are drawn to, and so really, really important skills. And so I think, sadly, what happens when we have 20 some kids in a class and there's one teacher, the teacher cannot possibly focus on the emotional, the social, and the academic for each child. And that is not anything to say against teachers. They're doing such an incredible job with what they have. But it's just impossible to know where certain kids are struggling in some of these other areas. And so I guess what I've seen in my house, and I sort of take this view because I look at what I learned about child development in my career field, but then also just what I've observed in my own house, what I've observed with friends, and just stories I've heard. I just think all of these areas are so important to focus on. And we have a huge gift in homeschooling that we can focus on these other areas just as much as academics. And I would even argue that once these other areas are kind of up to snuff, and we've got more skill in them, the academics becomes so much more smoothly. Yeah. And so in my house, how I've sort of witnessed this a couple of different ways. Our daughter, for instance, she has ADHD. And so we had to struggle through a lot of academics for a while and just figuring out, how do we teach her? How does she learn? And how do we maximize that? But we also had a period where she struggled with a lot of anxiety. And so that's where that emotional processing, how do I have these big feelings? How do I process them? How do I move forward and not just completely fall apart? Those are the skills that we had to work on really intensively for about a year and a half. And so what I saw and what I realized is if I had to send her away for the majority of the day, she would have to really hold all that worry in, and her mind would be coming up with all sorts of ideas and things and thought processes because she was only 6. She didn't have the resources to know how to deal with that yet at age 6. And so what I really appreciated in that time was throughout the day, she'd have some worry, she'd come to me, she could basically borrow my adult brain, process it, we could work it through together, we could get through it, and then we could celebrate, hey, look at what you did, you were really, really worried, and we talked it through, you got to the other side, let's think about what did we do that was helpful, what was really hard in that, and so I have the benefit of having lots of years of experience, so I can walk her through this, and she doesn't have to feel alone. Right. And so she really, her anxiety is completely resolved, which I think is it doesn't always happen because I think kids don't get that intensive all day, every day we're working on this. If you think about it like learning a language, if you are immersed in a language, you learn about it super quickly, right? I mean, people can be fluent very quickly if they're immersed in a country. Yeah. Whereas if we're just working on it bit by bit, when we have the time, it just doesn't become as ingrained in us and our natural process. And so I started to view it as that, man, I'm just so grateful that I can work on this constantly with her. Now, I did have to give her some space to work on it herself, and have to be able to process it a little bit herself. But we could do it in a really, really controlled manner. And so it just really opened my eyes to how not only am I teaching my children academically, I have this huge advantage to where I can be working on their emotions, I can working on their social skills from an adult perspective. And another example in my own house would be my son, who he's just 5. And honestly, I didn't plan on starting any schoolwork with him this year because I just don't feel really rushed to do that. But he is my one who begs to do schoolwork, and academics so far seem to not be a problem, which is so different for us. Yeah. So his academic intelligence is probably a little higher. And But he is my one who we are constantly working on that emotional processing, because he will just get angry. He'll get frustrated. He explodes, and he'll kind of explode the ones around him. Now, we get to work on that again constantly, instead of just, maybe for a little bit in the evening or a little bit on the weekends. And, I think nowadays we're all so scheduled and we're going all over the place that there just isn't time, unless you're with your kids, for a vast amount of time. You need that quantity of time in order to have those moments where you really catch what they need to work on. Sorry, right. There's my 3-year-old.
That's okay. Hey, buddy. No problem.
But then I think too, and I guarantee you've gotten this question over and over, but that social intelligence, I think the question that every homeschooler gets over and over is, what about their socialization? That's the thing that, and I think I was worried about that as well before we started homeschooling. But that's another thing that I've seen that, we can work on that again in our homes, using our adult experiences, and kids don't have to rely on other kids who also have no clue what they're doing to learn these skills. And I think, first in my mind, I had to define, okay, what is socialization? Socialization is learning from those around you. And we get to choose as homeschoolers who our kids are learning from. And I'm glad that they get to learn from me, someone who is wanting the best for them, thinks like an adult, has been there, have had those experiences. I can talk them through, hey, how do we have a conflict that we can come out the other side and still like each other, and how can we argue in a way that is productive, because you are going to have arguments. And so I like to just really view my kids in this, how are they doing academically? How are they doing emotionally? How are they doing socially? And I just really love the opportunity to be able to work on all of those intensively in my home, because I'm just with them all the time. It makes me wonder what society would look like if, we valued all of those areas and worked on all of those areas, and, how we would treat each other and things like that. So it makes me excited for my kids to know that they can improve in all of those areas.
Yeah.
So
I know it's easy to just get stuck on, we've got to get through this load of work, like academically. And so there's a lot of pressure there a lot of times, but it's good to hear, hey, slow down, take an assessment of what's actually going on right now, emotionally and or socially, in this dynamic with my child. I remember I was in 3rd grade, and the school I went to had a whole wall, like the entire wall was windows, and it faced the playground. And I did not even know, just like that, I was struggling with any type of like attention deficit or anything, but like my attention and my want to was just like pulled to the window all the time, because I was watching all the kids on the playground going, if I was out there, I'd be on the slide or on the swings, or look at that kid, they look like they're having fun. And so I got that year on one of my report cards, I got a U on attentiveness. And I was like, well, first of all, U is not a grade. But my sister, who's just a little bit older than me, laughed her head off. She was like, you got a U in attentiveness. And I was like, I was in 3rd grade. I was like, I don't even know what it means. How can I get it if I don't know what it means? Like, nobody explained to me, like, attentiveness is this, and you're not attentive in class. But I think it ended up being a conversation between the teacher and my parents of, hey, she's not really paying attention. She's looking out the window the whole time. So I can relate with, hey, I want to learn, but I don't want to be sitting in this seat necessarily at this desk and learning. And to this day, like I remember after recess or after PE, for some reason, that's when my brain was the most focused. And I would feel, I could like describe it like this, like I would feel this physical buzz energy. Like I can't sit still. I can't, like my mind couldn't focus because my body wasn't done moving. And I still operate that even as a mom now of 4 kids. Like if I start my day with activity and movement by going out for a jog or a workout or whatever it is, my mind then feels ready to go ahead and own my day. And so, we're just all wired differently. And I can completely relate with what you're talking about with your daughter. And it's real, you got to get this, you got to get this movement out to be able to learn.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we just have this great opportunity to really know our kids and know what will help them and remove barriers that are going to get in the way of their learning, and because we want them to be able to learn and they want to learn. I mean, kids want to learn. They want to learn all these wonderful things, but sometimes there's barriers that, if we just lift that or ease that and say, you're going to learn how to sit in a chair when you need to, but let's do it in the time that it takes you, and that's okay, and not make you feel bad about it. And so, I've really been blown away by, how well she's done with that. And just all the other opportunities to work on kind of these other areas of intelligence that I think we often neglect.
Yeah, it's true. So, there is a time to sit still. And like a motto in our home is we play hard, but we also work hard. So when it's time to work, it's time to sit still. It's not always playtime. That's true. That's really good.
Yeah.
So I love your why. I love who you homeschool. So you said that you're only homeschooling 2 kids right now because you have a 3-year-old, right?
Yes. So we're homeschooling my 9-year-old daughter. So she's 3rd grade. And she's definitely our creative type. I joke all the time. I'm like, I could give her any raw material and she would come up with the most fantastic, wonderful thing. And, I tell her all the time too, I say, your brain is so incredible. Like I'm much more of a traditional learner. And so I tell her brain is so gifted in areas that mine is not, and again, that gets back to the whole, we've all got different gifts, different intelligences, and none of us are going to be all encompassing with this. And so we can learn from each other. And so I have really enjoyed teaching her. I think in the beginning, I was really intimidated. I thought, I can't teach her. I literally am the opposite. I'm the absolute opposite learner. If you give me a set of worksheets, I am happy, and so that was really intimidating for me at first. And then God really slowly worked on me and said, this is amazing. You can learn from her. She can learn some of those skills that she needs to work on from you because you guys are opposite. And so it's really been wonderful. But so she's doing really great academically now, which is really exciting. And then she's more of my, she went through that little stint with her anxiety emotionally, but now it's incredible to watch her because she has this toolbox of how do I deal with these emotions, because we work so intensively on it, and I see her apply it to all sorts of things. So I would really say she's very, very proficient in handling her emotions now. And then socially, she's always been pretty good, social butterfly, and has lots of friends and stuff, and so that's fun to watch. And then my 5-year-old, so we didn't really intend to start kindergarten, it's this kindergarten, I don't know, this year, but we did because he was just begging to do stuff. And so he does really well with that. But again, he's my one that, I work a little more on how do we not have this anger and, things like that. But he is my sports fan. And so there's always a hockey puck or a football being thrown no matter what. And so, he's just fun. And then my 3-year-old, he's not technically in school, but, I feel like we're working on the toddler years and again, emotional, working through all of that. I feel like, we have such an opportunity with these little ones to really take time with them. And so, so he's great. He comes along for the ride.
Well, good. Tell us, what do you do and how do you do it?
Sure. So, so what do I do? Well, our skeleton, which I know a couple of people, Carmen does classical conversations. And I know a couple of people have talked about this, but we love classical conversations. I think I fell in love with the classical model of education because of my background in child development, and it just makes so much sense with how kids learn. So that's our main structure. And then we use a language arts curriculum and a math curriculum. We love Right Start Math. If anybody has kids who really need more manipulatives, it's great. That's awesome. We do Logic of English for language arts, but there's all different curriculums and in those areas. But I am a very structured person. So
tell me more. I need to know more. Tell me about this thing called structure.
So fun to be in doing life with her because I can learn from her and and we can talk about all these things. But yeah, so I'm very rhythmic. I'm very habitual. I kind of always have been. I used to really fight it in my homeschooling and think, well, I have to be a certain way. I have to be a little bit more flexible. I have to, all these things. So when I first started homeschooling, I felt like I needed to be good at everything right away. And that was silly. But so when I finally realized, okay, this is who I am, let's just set up our school kind of habitually and have that rhythm and have that structure. And then we can sort of add, as things get comfortable. So that's kind of what we've been doing. So I am the type who has to get up before my kids so that I can greet them well. That's my personality. I can't wake up with them and greet them well. So I get up before them, have my time with the Lord. I usually do a workout in the morning. I'm kind of like you, where I have to get my own energy out before I can really focus. And so and then we typically start breakfast and read aloud time about 8:00. I'm kind of a morning person too. I can't stay up past about 9. So, we get going early and we read for about an hour. Read aloud time is probably our favorite, my kids' favorite, my favorite, which again, that's another thing that I didn't think I would love to read to my kids for an hour, but it is my favorite. Then we typically do math right about 9:00. I feel like we got to get the big dog done, the math. And so we do math. Then we actually have karate 3 days a week in the middle of the day. So we do that during the day, and my kids get their energy out, come home, do lunch, and then we kind of do our language arts in the afternoon. And we do our memory work somewhere in there. But we pretty much have a pretty, sometimes the time looks a little different, but it's fairly rhythmic. We're usually completely done with school activities, everything by about 2:00. And then my kids just free play. And that's another thing I love about homeschooling. They get so much time to just be in their imagination, and just that's such a stress relief for kids. I think we underestimate the value of just unstructured free play. And so I love that they are outside and just doing that kind of thing, or they can read or whatever they want to do. So we have a general skeleton structure. Now, I have learned to be a lot more flexible as I've grown into homeschooling and just realized that it is necessary. But I think I really had to start with what's comfortable for me and then sort of add and expand. And we do nature walks. That's probably my other favorite thing because I'm more science minded. So I love just having my kids really start the process of observing the world around you. What do you notice? Let's ask good questions. What do you think the answer is? And just talking about the world around us, and just talking about God. You can't go out in nature without really seeing God, and so I love that. So it's a really valuable part of our school. So I guess that's our typical what it looks like. We're pretty free in the evenings, so we don't have a lot scheduled in the evenings. And my husband's job is kind of more that I guess he leaves about 7:30, gets home by 6, and then home on the weekends. And so we do school when Daddy's at work, and that's it.
Good.
So
I love how you told me one time that to keep it kind of fresh for free play, you have bins that you kind of cycle through, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So this is this is a more recent change, but if I were to give kind of a boots on the ground tip for the mom who is not good with having a lot of visual clutter and is a little more structured and routine, this would be my probably favorite tip is I take our toy, and you guys are probably similar where you've got, like the Legos, which are 8 million tiny little pieces, and then, magnet tiles and, just all these things. And I noticed that my kids would take all the toys out every day, and then I would about lose my mind. And I also just thought, it takes us like an hour to pick this up. Yeah. There's got to be a better way. And so we sort of put most of our toys in bins, and I put these bins high up in the closet. And now this works with younger kids. I mean, I can't speak to, I don't know that you can do this for teenagers, but we put it up high, And typically every day I'll bring down one bin, and they do have some of their regular toys, but we really don't have a lot of other toys out. And I will bring down one bin in the morning when my daughter and I start math, and the boys are excited to see what bin it is. And then they get to play with that bin all day. But then the next day it's something new and that bin goes away. So there's this tiny bit of excitement of what is it? And, oh, we only get to play with this today. I'm not going to get it for another week. And, at first I thought I might be limiting them by not having other things available. But what I've actually noticed is they're so much more creative with each toy.
That's cool.
They actually spend the entire day playing with it because they realize, oh, I can come up with a million different things. Yeah. And so it's been fun for me to see that when I do sit in my gifting, I think sometimes I resist it, but I say, okay, I'm good at this organizing thing. And, God often will show me how, okay, it does benefit my kids. I don't have to fight so much my strength. Now I can grow in other areas, but it's okay to do what feels natural to you in your homeschooling. So yeah, that's probably my favorite thing.
Yeah.
And then it takes us about 5 minutes to pick up, in the afternoon. So it's night. Dad gets home and we're cleaned up and we're good.
Yeah.
So
I admire the structure and the organization that you have. You kind of already touched on where and when you homeschool just by kind of unpacking how you do what you do. Is there anything else that you want to say about that, about where and when?
I think the only other when would just be we typically do the traditional school year mostly as a function of Minnesota's June to August is the most fabulous time. And so we just want to be outside and not really have school as our thing. And there's lots of camps and, things like that. So I do know a lot of people who do year round, and I've thought about going back and forth with that. But, for our family, we love to be out on the lake. We love to be doing all that kind of stuff in the summer. So we do follow a traditional school year.
Right.
So I know some people do differently, which is great to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's the beauty of it is you do what the best way to homeschool is the way that works best for you. And you have that freedom and that flexibility. And thank you for bringing the information of the maturity of academic, social, and and emotional, because that's really, really important. As we kind of bring this to a close, what advice would you give to encourage someone right now in their situation with homeschooling?
Sure. Yeah. And it's it's tough right now. It's hard for parents to suddenly fall into this, Number one is you can do it. I truly thought when I started homeschooling that there's a subset of people who are able to do this, It's so not true. So just don't believe it. You are capable. And, I think it looks a little different everywhere. I know a lot of the schools around here are kind of providing the curriculum for the children. I don't know how it is down there. But either way, regardless of, sorry, we have timer going on.
I'm enjoying the music. It's music class time.
But yeah, so I think whatever is happening with curriculum and, all that kind of stuff, that to me kind of feels like a side note. I think my number one advice would be just get to know your child, get to know how to enjoy your child home, because it's an adjustment for both of you. And so get to know, what are they worrying about lately? Are they, number one, are they worried about what's going on in the world? Because you're not going to get any academic knowledge into them if they are so full of angst about what's going on around them. And so process that with them, increase their emotional intelligence skills. And you're just not going to get anywhere otherwise without prioritizing getting to know them, getting to know what's going on in their heart. So I think that would be my biggest advice. As far as if I had advice for what to do or what to focus on, I would say read a good chapter book that your whole family is going to love together. There is just so much value in that. I mean, if you want to go into the academics, they are getting grammar and they're getting good sense and structure and they're getting vocabulary and all that kind of stuff. But it's just that bonding time. And then go outside, ask them questions, have them ask you questions. You'll just be completely blown away by all the learning that is involved in just going on a walk.
Mm-hmm.
So I would almost, and for me, I'm a very check the box, I really love to get all the academics done. But when I really boil down what is important, especially if you're just thrown into homeschooling, it's get to know your kids, get outside and read, period. And that would be my advice for pretty much anyone jumping into homeschool. Even if you've been thinking about it, just get those things first, and then worry about the rest. So
that's good. That's a really easy place to start. Get to know your kids, get outside and read, and start there.
And just questions. I mean, man, your kids are full of stuff that is deep down in there, and sometimes they just don't offer it. But just ask them, why do you think, like I just asked my kids the other day, why do you think there's snow on this side of the hill and not this side of the hill? And then I just let them think about that, and well, the sun shines on this side, more of the day and gets warmer, and just things like that. There's so much learning there. So
that's good. I really appreciate your time and just sitting down with me.
Thank you.
And talking through some of this. So I really believe in the power of story, and my hope is that your story will encourage someone. To encourage is to literally put courage in. So I'm hoping that your story will encourage someone who just needed to hear it today. So thank you again, Christine.
Thank you for doing this, Carmen. It's such a great idea. So I love it. So thank you.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.